You didn't stumble here by chance. Something in you, ancient, electric, and quietly certain, guided you to this exact moment. The part of you that's done repeating, done looping, done pretending not to know. You're not here to hear something new, you're here to remember what you've always known. Reality isn't happening to you, it's responding through you. And the pattern that's kept you small, it's trembling. Because once awareness sees itself, the loop loses power. So take a breath. You've already begun the shift. Now listen carefully. These are the 6 revelations that rewrite your reality. Awareness is the first fracture, the first quiet tremor in the architecture of illusion. Most people think breaking a pattern requires force, strategy, or sacrifice. But that's only what the old self believes. The truth is far simpler, far quieter, and far more powerful. It begins the moment you see what has always been running. The moment you realize that the pattern is not life happening to you, but consciousness repeating itself until it is recognized. The instant your awareness lands on it, without resistance or judgment, the loop begins to lose its grip. Because awareness does not fee, it reveals, and what is revealed cannot remain in the dark. You've probably noticed that when you catch yourself repeating an old behavior or emotion, something strange happens. For a split second, you're both inside the loop and outside of it. You feel the familiar pull, the irritation, the self-doubt, the automatic reaction. But now there's also the watcher. That subtle shift of perspective is not small, it's seismic. It means the unconscious has become conscious, and consciousness cannot unsee itself. You've just created a fracture in the pattern's timeline. The energy that once flowed automatically now hesitates, pauses, trembles, because it knows it's being seen. In the quantum sense, observation changes the observed. This isn't just a metaphor, it's mechanics. The moment you become aware of a frequency, you are no longer bound to it. You're interacting with it, reshaping it through attention. The pattern, which relied on your absence, can't survive your presence. You were never meant to wrestle it into submission, you were meant to witness it into transformation. The more deeply you see it, without trying to fix it, the more its illusion unravels. This is the paradox. The loop dissolves not when you attack it, but when you stop pretending it has power. Most people never get here because they confuse awareness with analysis. They look at their patterns and try to dissect them, asking why they exist, how they started, who caused them. But that's just another loop wearing spiritual clothing. Awareness doesn't ask why, it simply sees. It stands still in the middle of the storm and says, there you are. That stillness is not ignorance, it's mastery. Because when you stop feeding the loop with story and meaning, you cut off its energy supply. The old emotional charge that used to run through you like electricity suddenly finds no outlet. It fizzles, collapses, fades. You might even feel disoriented as this happens. A strange spaciousness where there used to be tension. The mind will panic because it doesn't know who it is without the familiar struggle. It will try to pull you back into reaction just to feel something. But that's when you breathe. You remember, the emptiness is not absence, it's potential. You've entered the gap between timelines, the space where new realities are born. Awareness has created the crack, and now light can enter. You don't need to rush to fill the silence is doing the work for you. What's beautiful, and slightly humorous, is that the pattern itself becomes your teacher. The more it tries to replay, the more you get to practice being the observer. Each repetition is not failure, it's refinement. You're not regressing, you're mastering subtlety. Eventually you start to see through the entire performance. You recognize the thought before it finishes forming, the feeling before it peaks, the impulse before it moves. You catch the vibration as it rises and you smile. In that moment, you realize you're no longer inside the loop. You're standing beyond it, watching it fade into transparency. This is how true transformation begins, not with dramatic change, but with invisible awareness. The world won't see it yet, but the quantum field already has. The moment you observe the old pattern with consciousness, it collapses. The script that once dictated your reactions no longer has an actor to play the role. Awareness has reclaimed the stage, so don't underestimate this moment. This isn't just noticing, it's alchemy. You're not trying to break the pattern anymore. You are the awareness that ends it by existing. The pattern was never the enemy. It only seemed like one because you were seeing it through the eyes of resistance. Every loop, every recurring emotion, every familiar heartbreak or frustration was not a punishment. It was an echo, a frequency calling you back to remembrance. The universe, in its infinite intelligence, doesn't repeat to harm you, it repeats to help you see. What looks like stagnation is often sacred rehearsal, life showing you the same scene again and again, until you finally recognize that you are not the character trapped within it, but the consciousness authoring the script. You see, the pattern is not against you, it's for you. It exists because some fragment of your energy has not yet been integrated, not yet felt, not yet fully loved. So the universe mirrors it back, patiently and precisely, until you decide to stop running from it, and instead sit with it, breathe with it, let it tell its story. In that still presence, the monster turns into a messenger. The cycle reveals itself as a teacher wearing the mask of frustration. The lesson was never hidden, only your willingness to look was. Think of every loop you've lived as a conversation between you and the infinite. Each repetition whispers the same question. Do you remember who you are yet? The first few times you react, you blame others, you fight circumstances, you collapse into old identities. But eventually something shifts. You begin to sense the pattern's rhythm, its strange compassion. You realize that it's not trying to trap you, it's trying to awaken you. The discomfort was never cruelty, it was communication. Every time the pain rose, it was saying, there is still a part of you you have not met with love. When that realization sinks in, the energy changes instantly. You no longer approach your patterns as enemies to defeat, but as mirrors to decode. You begin to see that even your darkest cycles were expressions of intelligence, energy seeking resolution through repetition. What you once called stuck was actually your own light looping back, waiting to be reclaimed. The universe cannot evolve through denial, only through recognition, so it repeats not to trap you in time, but to give you endless opportunities to awaken beyond it. And here lies the paradox. The moment you stop judging the pattern, it fulfills its purpose. It no longer needs to persist because you've received what it came to deliver. The emotional charge that kept it spinning dissolves because love completes the lesson. The pattern was never trying to break you, it was trying to show you the vibration you were unconsciously maintaining. You were not a victim of it, you were the projector of it. And now, by seeing it with compassion instead of resistance, you collapse the illusion of opposition entirely. So don't rush to escape the loops, listen to them. Don't fight what's repeating, decode it. The universe speaks through rhythm, through echoes, through familiar experiences arranged just precisely enough to bring your unconscious into view. Each cycle that returns is not failure, but fidelity, the universe keeping its promise to evolve you through reflection. The pattern is not the wall, it's the doorway. The only reason it repeated is because you were ready, not because you were wrong. And now, by seeing that clearly, you step through the doorway instead of circling it. You didn't find this realization by accident. You're remembering what your soul designed long ago, that everything you thought was against you was, in truth, guiding you home. You don't break patterns through effort. You break them through identity. The moment you stop trying to fix what's happening and start remembering who it's happening through, everything begins to reorganize. Every loop you've ever lived wasn't sustained by circumstance, but by the version of you who believed in it. Energy always follows identification. As long as you keep calling yourself the one who struggles, the one who heals, the one W, notice how your body feels when you think of something that used to trigger you deeply. That subtle difference, the lessening grip, the calm curiosity, that's liberation in motion. It's the pattern losing its purpose because your awareness has transformed its frequency. You no longer need the pain to point you home, you've already arrived. And in that moment, gratitude replaces guilt. You can finally say, thank you for showing me where I was asleep, because every pattern, no matter how heavy, was a divine reminder that something in you was ready to wake up. Ho tries. The universe will keep mirroring back realities that confirm that self-image. But the instant you withdraw your belief from that identity, the loop has nothing left to attach to. It can't continue without a host. The greatest illusion is that change happens outside first. You think you have to shift jobs, relationships, timelines, habits, but all of those are secondary reflections. Reality doesn't change because you want something new, it changes because you become someone new. Every pattern is a costume you put on, a story you agreed to play for a while. The moment you remember you're the actor and not the role, the entire scene loses gravity. And yet, paradoxically, you don't need to reject the old self. You just stop confusing it with who you are. You let it dissolve like mist under sunlight, without struggle, without grief, only gratitude for what it taught you. It's strange, isn't it, how identity feels so solid until you look at it directly. The me who thought they were broken, unworthy, stuck, where is that being now? A memory, a vibration, a thought pattern once believed. That's all. The energy of identity is only as real as the attention that feeds it. When you observe yourself from awareness instead of from personality, the layers start to peel away. You see how every role, the victim, the achiever, the seeker, was a temporary archetype created to learn something specific. And when the lesson completes, the identity begins to dissolve naturally. You don't have to force it, you just stop rehearsing it. The quantum field doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your sense of self. When you wake up and decide, I am free now, not as affirmation but as embodiment, the field reorganizes itself instantly. It doesn't wait for time, because it's not bound by it. The only delay is how long it takes you to stop doubting who you've become. This is the secret of all transformation. You can't outthink a pattern, you can only outgrow the identity that sustains it. Once you do, reality has no choice but to update. But there's a subtle art here. It's not about pretending to be someone else or faking confidence. It's about remembering the consciousness beneath all costumes. When you stop playing small, you're not becoming bigger. You're simply remembering your natural size. You were never meant to fit inside limitation. You only agreed to wear it for a while to experience contrast. And now, that contract is expiring. You can feel it. The roles that once kept you safe feel tight around your energy. The voices that once defined you sound distant, almost fictional. That's because the energy that once powered them is withdrawing, returning to source, returning to you. So when you ask, how do I break this pattern? The answer isn't in effort but in embodiment. Ask instead, who would I be if this no longer defined me? Feel that version of you, not as fantasy but as frequency, and watch how quickly the outer world begins to follow. The shift is instantaneous because identity is the command code of creation. Once you change who you're being, the pattern has no coordinates left to find you. You're no longer in its dimension. The loop keeps spinning, but you're simply not there anymore. You've moved into the version of reality that can only mirror your freedom. Stillness is the disruptor, though it rarely feels that way at first. To the mind that was trained to equate motion with progress, stillness feels like failure. It feels like nothing is happening, like time has paused, like you're being left behind. But that illusion is exactly what the pattern needs to survive. The belief that if you stop moving, you'll fall apart. The truth is the opposite. Stillness doesn't stop your evolution, it accelerates it. It's not absence of energy, it's concentration of it. When you stop reacting, the energy that was scattered through countless thoughts and identity is the hidden frequency that encodes your entire timeline. Change it, and the past rearranges itself to match the new truth. The memories that once haunted you lose their weight, because you're no longer the one they happen to. You're the witness, eternal, fluid, infinite. And that realization doesn't erase your history, it redeems it. Every version of you that ever struggled contributed to this moment of awakening. You don't need to disown them, you can bless them. They were the bridges you built to cross from amnesia into remembrance. Emotions gathers itself into coherence, and in that coherence, reality starts to reorder itself. The pattern feeds on reaction. Every time you rush to fix, explain, or justify what's unfolding, you feed it more momentum. Reaction keeps the old energy in orbit, circling endlessly because you've never allowed it to simply be. Stillness, however, interrupts that loop. It's the silent declaration that says, "I will no longer dance to this rhythm." You stop engaging with the vibration that kept you entangled, and suddenly the field around you begins to quiet. The emotional noise subsides, and something sacred begins to happen beneath the surface. You start to hear the frequency beneath the story, the subtle hum of creation that was always there, waiting for your attention. In that quiet, you begin to see that stillness is not passive. It's the most powerful form of action there is. It's alignment in its purest state. When you choose stillness, you choose to trust the unseen mechanics of transformation. You allow the quantum field to do what your ego never could, recalibrate your reality without resistance. Because the universe doesn't need your effort, it needs your permission, and stillness is how you grant it. When you stop fighting the flow, the current takes you exactly where you were meant to go all along. There's a reason ancient mystics spoke of silence as the language of the divine. In stillness, you become transparent enough for higher intelligence to move through you. You stop transmitting old frequencies of fear, control, and anxiety, and begin to receive new ones: insight, inspiration, alignment. The world may think you're doing nothing, but the energy is reorganizing at lightning speed. Old patterns, once sustained by your attention, begin to collapse. You can feel it in your nervous system, that strange mixture of relief and uncertainty, as if something invisible is rewiring you from the inside out. That's because it is. But stillness is not comfort at first, it's confrontation. When the noise fades, you meet everything you've been avoiding. The emotions you outran, the thoughts you silenced with distraction, the loneliness hidden beneath constant striving, all of it rises to be integrated. This is the moment when most people run back into motion. They interpret the resurfacing of discomfort as regression, when in truth it's revelation. The stillness didn't create the chaos, it revealed it. You're not falling apart, you're witnessing the unraveling of the false structures that kept you confined. Every sensation, every ache, every wave of emotion is the echo of old energy leaving your field. If you can stay with it, breathe through it, allow it, something miraculous happens. The energy that once felt heavy begins to dissolve into peace. The tension that held you hostage becomes spaciousness. The thoughts that once attacked you lose their urgency. You start to see that peace is not something you reach, it's what remains when you stop running. Stillness doesn't add anything to you, it subtracts everything that isn't you. And as you rest in that subtraction, clarity emerges, not forced, not reasoned, but revealed. Eventually, you realize that stillness was never emptiness, it was wholeness disguised as pause. It's the space where creation resets itself, where your frequency synchronizes with the intelligence of life itself. The pattern cannot survive in that frequency, because it requires chaos to exist. In stillness, there's nowhere for it to hook, nothing for it to feed on, no reaction to sustain it. The loop collapses not because you fought it, but because you stopped playing. And so the paradox unfolds. When you finally do nothing, everything begins to change. You discover that stillness was never the end of motion. It was the origin of all movement. The silence you once feared becomes your sanctuary, your source, your most powerful point of creation. Because in the stillness you remember what you truly are, not the one trying to control the flow, but the consciousness from which the flow emerges. You are both the dream and the dreamer, though for so long you've believed yourself to be only the character wandering through the dream, reacting to its landscapes, fearing its shifts, trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. The moment you begin to sense that the same consciousness painting the sky is the one breathing through you, everything starts to soften. The walls of separation blur. The so-called external world and the inner one begin to move in rhythm, revealing what was true all along, that there is no out there. It was all you, all reflection, all resonance. Every face you met, every situation you called fate, was a fragment of your own frequency returning home for integration. It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that the very loops you once fought against were your own creations, not as punishment, but as conversation. The dream wasn't trying to trap you, it was trying to wake you. And the moment you stop seeing yourself as a powerless participant, the scenery starts to respond differently. It becomes malleable, fluid, alive, because the dream changes the instant the dreamer awakens. This is not poetic exaggeration, it's energetic truth. Consciousness organizes itself according to the awareness perceiving it. When you shift from identification with the dream character to awareness of the dream itself, your relationship to reality transforms. You move from reaction to authorship. You might notice how reality becomes strangely cooperative once you start remembering. Synchronicities multiply, conversations align perfectly, people mirror your new understanding with eerie precision. It's as though the universe has always been waiting for you to notice that it was never separate. What you called coincidence was simply coherence revealing itself. But there's tenderness in this realization too, because it means that the pain was you as well. The heartbreaks, the betrayals, the losses, they weren't random, they were sacred mirrors, reflecting unhealed parts of your own consciousness. And as you begin to forgive the dream, you begin to free the dreamer. It's a strange freedom, not the kind that erases all challenge, but the kind that ends all victimhood. You begin to see that you were never trapped by events, only by perception. The moment you meet your experiences as your own reflection, judgment dissolves. There is no longer anyone to blame or defend against. The energy that once looped through guilt or resentment begins to relax, and with that relaxation, the dream itself reorganizes. The nightmare turns lucid. You wake up inside your own creation and realize you can choose what comes next, not through control, but through vibration. The dreamer doesn't need to manipulate the dream, they simply need to dream differently. This awakening doesn't make life less real, it makes it more real. The colors sharpen, the sensations deepen, the moments slow down. You start to sense the sacred architecture beneath everything, how even the smallest details carry intelligence. You look at a stranger and feel an ancient familiarity because somewhere in the vast web of consciousness you recognize yourself. There's no more need to chase meaning, because meaning is everywhere. Life stops being a puzzle to solve and becomes a masterpiece to experience. And yet, this realization also asks for humility, because if you are the dreamer, then so is everyone else. Every consciousness you meet is another dreamer awakening within their own reflection. You realize you can't awaken alone. Every act of forgiveness, every moment of compassion, every time you choose presence over reaction, you help another facet of yourself awaken too. The dream of separation starts to unravel collectively. You begin to feel the unity that words can't describe, a vast field of awareness breathing itself into infinite forms, remembering itself one heartbeat at a time. So when you look back on your journey, you see it differently now. You see that the patterns weren't obstacles, but signals. The stillness wasn't emptiness, but source. The identity wasn't a trap, but a doorway. And now this remembrance is the turning point. You're no longer chasing awakening, you're embodying it. You realize that nothing needs to be forced, because the dream is self-correcting once the dreamer remembers. Every breath, every moment, every encounter is part of the same divine rhythm, calling you deeper into yourself. You don't need to escape the dream. You only need to stay awake within it, aware that it's all you, creating, remembering, becoming. The pattern breaks when you stop waiting. For so long you've been standing at the edge of your own becoming, scanning the horizon for proof that you're ready, for the sign, the shift, the external validation that says it's safe to move. But the universe doesn't work that way. It mirrors conviction, not hesitation. The moment you decide that change has already happened, reality begins to rearrange itself to reflect that decision. Waiting keeps the old frequency alive. It tells the field, I am not yet, but embod. I meant whispers a different command, I already am. That subtle difference, almost invisible to the mind, is everything. It's the energetic pivot that collapses the loop and activates the new timeline. You've been taught that transformation is something you move toward, that awakening is a destination you'll arrive at once you've done enough healing, forgiven enough, understood enough. But what if it's the opposite? What if the only thing between you and the next reality is the belief that there's still a distance to cross? The universe doesn't measure readiness in time, it measures it in frequency. The vibration of waiting keeps you in the old story. The vibration of knowing, even before evidence appears, births the new one instantly. You don't have to reach your potential, you have to remember it. You're not trying to become who you're meant to be. You're finally allowing yourself to be who you already are. This is the moment most people hesitate, because the mind demands certainty before it believes. It says, "Show me proof, and I'll trust." But the field responds in reverse. "Trust first, and I'll show you proof." Faith is not blind belief, it's energetic authorship. It's you stepping into alignment so fully that the universe has no choice but to echo your conviction. The paradox is that the evidence appears the moment you no longer need it. When you stop waiting for the sign, you become the sign. You radiate the frequency of completion, and that signal ripples through every layer of your reality, reorganizing opportunities, encounters, and timelines in ways your logical mind could never orchestrate. So what does it look like practically to stop waiting? It looks like acting from your new identity, even while the world still reflects the old one. It's choosing gratitude before results, peace before closure, abundance before proof. It's walking as though it's already done, not to convince yourself, but because on a deeper level, it is done. The waiting self dissolves when you realize there was never anything to wait for. Only realities awaiting your permission to appear. You give that permission the moment you stop rehearsing lack and start embodying fulfillment. And yes, it feels strange at first. You'll sense the mind's confusion, its demand for confirmation. But remember, the field doesn't move because you doubt less. It moves because you believe differently. It doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your energetic posture. When you stand in the vibration of already, reality catches up. The dream adjusts to the dreamer's new awareness. That's the quantum law. That's how loops dissolve, not through time, but through recognition. You may even feel grief as you step out of the waiting state, a subtle mourning for the version of you who kept hoping. But honor that part gently, because it kept the faith through every cycle of delay. It believed, even when it didn't know how. Now it can rest, because you've realized the truth. You were never waiting for the universe was waiting for you, waiting for the moment you would stop deferring your light to some future moment, and finally claim the present as the miracle it has always been. So here's your invitation, not someday, not when things align, but now. Breathe in the knowing that nothing stands between you and your next self except the illusion of waiting. Feel the electricity in your chest, the aliveness in this moment, the quiet certainty that something within you has already shifted. The pattern isn't ending in the distance. It's ending right now, in the realization that you are no longer the one who needs to repeat it. And as you feel that truth settle in, remember, the field is listening. Your timeline is listening. This moment is listening. So choose now. Speak it into existence. I am done waiting. I am already there. Then move as the version of you who knows it's true. That's the only action the universe needs. That's the call it's been waiting to answer. Now, take a breath, feel the stillness beneath it, and let this awareness root deeply. You didn't find this by accident. You were ready. And now that you know, everything begins to move. Breathe for a moment and feel the truth you've just remembered. The pattern isn't something you escape. It's something you've already outgrown. The loops, the repetitions, the old voices that told you who you were supposed to be, they no longer define you. You are the dreamer, the creator, the awareness through which all reality unfolds. And now, with each breath, each pause, each silent moment, you are stepping fully into the frequency of your own freedom. This isn't the end of your journey. It's only the awakening to the next layer. Every time you remember this, reality adjusts. Every time you honor your presence, the universe answers. And every time you embrace the stillness, the pattern bends, shifts, and dissolves in ways that words can't predict. If you felt this truth resonate, if you felt even a spark of recognition, let it guide you further. Subscribe, stay in this frequency, and keep walking the path of remembrance. There is more waiting for you, deeper truths, greater awakenings, and the infinite potential that exists the moment you stop waiting and start embodying. Remember, you didn't find this by accident. You were ready, and the universe is waiting for you to remember that you are already everything you've been seeking.